Thanks again for talking with me.
It's
It's
okay.
always an honor. It's always an
I'll
honor.
say the same stuff. No.
And I know you've probably heard this question, but I have to ask: how did you get on this, and why Superman? Was it Chris who convinced you, or was it Zach, or what was the sort of final piece that made you say you got to do this?
Well, weirdly, the question, I knew Chris was playing around with that Superman idea, but I didn't know what it was. And then Zach came on board. And it was in the middle of we just finished Inception. We had there was a press party and with incredibly loud music and everything. And a journalist asked me, "So you're going to do Superman?" And I said, "Absolutely not."
I think I remember that.
Yeah. And then it was over the internet within seconds that they completely misunderstood me, saying I was doing Superman. So I thought this is really embarrassing. I mean, this is really. So I phoned Zach and I said, look, we've never met. I'm sorry, it wasn't me. It's a misunderstanding. And he said, oh, hey, it's a good coincidence you're phoning because I'm just listening to some of your music and I'd just love to meet. And I'm going, but I don't think I can do Superman. I mean, I think John Williams is your man.
Yeah.
John is, he is without a shadow of a doubt, the greatest living film composer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the word shadow comes in. He casts a large shadow. I didn't really need to. It's not about other people comparing us. It's my own insecurities comparing myself. So do I really want to put myself through this? Secondly, this is an American icon. I think it needs to be an American that scores this movie.
Does that? Well, sorry to interrupt, but does that with the American aspect? Does that play into your score at all? Do you think about that when you're actually putting together beyond that's who he is and where he's raised? Does it actually influence the sort of sounds you make?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, it did, but and then of course the inevitable happened. Well, Chris was trying to persuade me, forever, and I said, look, we got Dark Knight Rises ahead of us, so let's just get that one. Let's just get into this. And he kept saying, oh, come on, you can do it. And I finally turned around to him and I said, so when you went to Warner Brothers and you said you have an idea for Superman, you actually went to them with an idea. That's the difference. Because right now you're saying to me, you can do Superman, and all I got between my two ears is a blank space. I have no idea. And then I sat down with Zach and we just started talking about, I never read the script.
Interesting.
I just sat down with Zach and I said, tell me the story. Because I wanted to know what his take was, what resonated with him. And suddenly, we were talking about things that actually meant something to me, like a stranger in a strange land, being I'm a foreigner wherever I go, even if I go home, it's terrible. I lived abroad for so long that when I go back to Germany and I speak, and they answer me in English because I have an English accent. In no language do I have a pure accent. My children sound entirely different to me.
Right.
They say tomato, I say tomato.
Right.
They keep making fun of the word water.
Right.
So that thing about belonging, and then I was thinking, look, I've just spent 9 years being the darkest of nights,
right,
and dealing with subjects of large cities and crime and cynicism and the modern world and stock markets and all that sort of stuff, And there's a part of America, this is where being a foreigner is a good thing comes in, where you go, hang on a second, I look at the Midwest and I see hardworking, honest people, honorable, humble, they don't get mentioned, they don't get glorified, glitzed, made into the Kardashians, and they're the real heroes. And I mean, so that became interesting. That suddenly became interesting. Let's go and celebrate them.
right.
Not just for the rest of the world. But for America itself, I mean, the thing we foreigners do quite well is hold up a mirror and go, hey, look at this amazing place you keep ignoring. I mean, I remember, Thelma and Louise, us going, it's the Grand Canyon, wow, and some kids going, Dad, can we go home now? It's the Grand Canyon, it's boring.
Right.
And you're just going, no, I want to go and celebrate this.
How much actual time is required for you to invest in a score like this, to actually get involved in it and to commit to it?
Well, the thing was, I said to Chris, I'm not even gonna. Don't want anybody to mention this word. Oh, you're Superman to me again, until we finish Dark Knight Rises. Because I'll just be, I'll just be torn to pieces here.
Right.
So 15 minutes, I don't know. There was a point where I said, oh, I think I'm finished. And within 15 minutes, it was like...
Really?
But then came a huge period of procrastination and self-doubt. And I sort of had it in my head. I knew the colors I wanted to use. I sort of had the tune and everything. But, the problem about, Zach said earlier in the press conference, I wanted to do something humble. I know how to make a big noise, and I know how we're going to do the action scenes, but it's the heart of the matter, so it's humble, and it has to be simple, and it has to be honest, and there's a really fine line between simple and simplistic, and between, stupid and actually something worth pursuing. So I had the notes, but I just wouldn't play them to anybody. And finally Zach phoned and said, so you got anything? And I'm going, just got these little post-its, you might want to put on your fridge, or some piano doodles. He goes, I love piano doodles. Let me come down and hear them. So I sort of, did the embarrassed tap dance. I mean, look, here's the thing about composers. I'm very comfortable right now talking to you because I'm hiding behind a secondary language, a secondary layer.
Right.
When I play you something, that's really me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm completely fragile and vulnerable. And so you want to work with people like Zach or Chris who don't make fun of you and respect that, and keep you safe. And so I played him this thing, and he's going, oh no, I think you're onto something, and of course, as soon as you get that, it quietens the critics and demons in your own head a little bit. And okay, good. So we're off to the races, and he sort of laughed and said, Chris told me to phone you and go, I'm coming down, because Chris said, if I'm not coming down, I'll never hear a note. He was right.
Wow.
So to answer your question of how long did it take, all in all, probably 6 months.
Okay. At what point, you were talking about, you said that you didn't read the script, but you heard the story, and then you had the notes for Zach. At what point do you start to hear that? Are you looking at anything at that point, or are you still just completely in your mind?
While he's telling me the story, because the whole thing is, it's like this funny game you inevitably have to play. A director really truly is in control of his movie all the way through. He can probably act a little for the actors. He can probably rewrite a line. When it comes to music, he sort of has to turn it over to you. And so even though we are talking about music, and even though I'm listening to him as he's speaking, in my mind I'm going, my job is to do the thing that he can't imagine. So it's not what we're talking about. So as he's telling me a story, and the great thing about Zach is he sort of works like me, where to really articulate a point, he'll grab a pen and draw it for you. I mean, he's an incredible artist. And I'm used to that from Ridley Scott as well. It's like, and if I really want to make a point, I'll go and play it.
Right.
And then we're going to get somewhere. So that process is, you don't really want the pictures to run, you don't really want to see the cut, you don't really want to be sort of constricted by the mechanics of it.
Right.
Just want your imagination to run riot, and then there is some things which are good and some things which, shall be banished to the rubbish bin forever.
I still want to hear them, but no.
Well, funny enough, what I did because we have a very nice record company, so we have a bonus CD, and the bonus CD
Right.
has my complete demo. It's
Really?
just literally.
Even that's not in the film at all? Just anything you made?
Well, weirdly, everything that's in the demo, in one way or the other, turned into. And the way I work is it's like a diary. Once I actually sit down, once I commit,
Right.
like the first day it'll get to somewhere, and I don't go back the next day. That's how far I got. It doesn't get edited or changed or anything like this. Warts and all.
Right.
And sometimes a theme takes, it's like the fourth iteration where it actually, oh, hang on a second, it starts to sound like a theme. I mean, you gotta get this thing under your fingers.
Right.
You have to sort of inhabit this world.
Right.
So, I find it always impossible to explain process to anybody because I don't really understand it myself. So I thought, hey, let me just put my diary on there.
Right.
And it's, I cut it down a little bit because it did get tedious. So it's about 28-minute long track.
Yeah. Wow. And this is just sort of like your free flow of what you're thinking and what you're hearing.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's because I don't just hear it this way. I hear it that way as well. So it's the orchestration, and then I had this idea of the 12 drummers, and then I went off and did the 12 drummers, and then the 12 drummers got slotted in because now I had the groove, now I had the rhythm, now I had the the heartbeat of the thing.
Yeah.
So it's just this endless ongoing process, and other people come in, collaborators come in, and
Right.
Zach comes by,
Listen.
hey, what do you think about this bit? Yeah, I mean, there came a moment where my music editor, I shall not forgive him for that, said, maybe we can get to a meeting without hearing a new version of the Clark Kent theme.
Wow.
Because I kept, it was just a few notes, and I kept
Are you that much of a perfectionist that you're to the last minute making sure every little note and every little detail is perfect?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is what I kept saying to everybody who played on it and everybody who was involved in it. You only get to do a Superman movie once in your lifetime. So you have to go at it with, look, the only reason I was saying no at the beginning was because I loved it so much. And you don't want to be the guy who ruined it for everybody on the team or people out there.
Right.
So it's some responsibility comes with this.
Right.
It's not a job.
No, I understand.
I don't do this stuff for the money.
But are you aware of your sort of presence and persona? I mean, from our perspective, and does that?
I am aware of it, and let me tell you, you truly misunderstand.
Well, but I just
no,
mean
because how can you?
Right.
Sometimes when I go on the internet and I see stuff about myself, and you start reading because you can't help yourself,
Right.
And you forget that you're reading about yourself. You're reading about a person that you don't know. Who's this guy? I have no idea who this guy is.
Right.
Because the guy that I really am is the guy who goes, I would love to do Superman, but I don't think I'm good enough. So, and it does get harder.
Right.
Because there's nothing left in the drawer. So everything has to be invention, and at the same time, it's you have an inherent aesthetic, you have an inherent style that you can't escape, and you don't really want to escape. I have my style.
Right.
And so, while you always set out going, hey, I'm going to go and invent, it's going to be all new, it's not revolutionary, it is evolutionary. But I do think this score has enough of a, the intent and the commitment to do something different than Dark Knight. I hope, shines through.
Of course, of course. I think that's what I'm so fascinated by, is that you are one of the very few composers who can consistently, I mean, you probably wouldn't agree with this term, but reinvent themselves on a film-by-film basis
then,
where,
But then think about a director like Ridley Scott, and just think about the stuff we've done together.
Right.
Gladiator is very different from Thelma and Louise. It's very different from Black Hawk Down. It's very different from Hannibal. It's very different from Matchstick Men, a movie nobody saw.
I saw it.
Okay, you saw it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
It's like, so...
But I like that you're so different each time, and yet
But
still...
otherwise it gets boring.
Of course.
It gets boring for me.
Right.
I have the huge advantage of having zero education. So I have no rules. I haven't studied Beethoven or Mozart or John Williams for that matter. So it's all like, oh, this is new. God, never tried, psychedelic country and western. Let me add it. Wow. Let's go and have 12 drummers, in amongst the orchestra. I don't know if it'll work, but let's find out. I mean, I had this whole idea on this one because I kept having this image of the way that telephone wires stretch across the Midwest,
right.
way beyond the horizon.
Right.
What would that sound be of, just the wind in those? And I thought, oh, pedal steel guitars. Everybody thinks pedal steel guitars are just country and western. I thought, oh, but in a funny way, they work very similar to a violin. You have to sort of find the note and et cetera, et cetera. So I got 8 pedal steel players into this room here.
Wow.
And it's a gorgeous sound. I mean, it's a sound all over that movie. Everything you think that's electronic isn't actually electronic. It's this beautiful ethereal sound these people did. The only part of the experiment that didn't quite work out is, when you do the drummers, they're all sitting upright and they're looking at you and you can conduct them. Pedal steel players are always looking down, trying to find their note. So they're sort of unconductable. So the first day was a bit of a learning curve.
Right.
It was, but that's the thing, that's the thing. They were excited. They'd never been in a room with each other. They all knew of each other. And we just figured out a new way of using the instrument. So everybody got something out of it. We got a new sound out of it, and they found a whole new technique of how to do this. And, eye contact is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. Where do you find the biggest inspirations? Is it in other music, or is it simply in the stories, or what do you see that you just, something that just happens to you that you just say, okay, this is where I found this, and I now want to do that? Like you're saying with the drum circles and just sort of the pieces that are coming together.
It's a story. You're just telling a story. I think. I don't know. I don't really know. I never asked that question of other composers, but I think the last thing you want to do is get it from other music, because that's like, you're just regurgitating something. So what happens is, as Zach tells me a story, I can't help but write a soundtrack in my head to his voice. It's like, I don't know, it's like, he starts talking, I have to score it.
I want that in my life every day, though.
And you sort of, you go, oh, hang on, yeah.
Right.
You just start hearing colors, and he's a painter. He sees colors. I hear colors. And because I haven't had a classical education, it means I'm not bound by those conventions. So my orchestras are all over the place and upside down and lopsided, and it's very hard to perform any Zimmer score live because the orchestra just doesn't, it's not your standard lineup, But then I never set out to write concert music.
Right.
I was always happy to be I wanted to be a film composer.
Right.
because I truly adore films,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, I'm a bit burnt by now today. Tough day,
Of course.
and you know, I had no days off between Man of Steel and Lone Ranger, and so and I didn't have a day off between Dark Knight Rises, and
Sounds like you need a vacation, right?
yeah, you know, but you know, what a great problem to have.
Right.
You know, what
Right.
an adventure. You know, and you know, remember the operative word in music is play.
Right.
So you know, it's not like it's a job.
Right. Well, the last thing I want to ask about is what is your take on the current state of the composing world in terms of sort of the not only your own position but sort of the rising composers and sort of the way composers are treated in this industry? Do you think it's improving? Can it be improved?
Well, can it be improved? You know, is a redundant question.
Of course.
Right. Look, I think since started, I started here about 1989.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it was people like John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith who sort of made it, you know, more of an art form or more popular. You know, I mean, you know, suddenly it was cool to listen to scores.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the thing I always believed was that the only way any art form can survive is if there's new blood. So I love that there are, you know, new composers coming up all the time. I mean, you know, John Powell's been kicking my butt for years, and I've known him since he was a teenager.
Right.
You know, so but that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like, you know, I remember having written something and thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, and Harry Gregson Williams was walking by and going, hey Harry, can I just play you something? Sort of wanting to show off, you know,
Right.
play him this thing, and he goes, H, this is not worthy of you. Oh, okay.
Wow.
You know, great. You know,
Right.
he protected me. I
Right.
didn't have to, you know, like we all get carried away with our bad
Right,
ideas.
right.
You know, so and composing by its nature is a sort of a lonely job. You know, it's
Right.
all cliches apply, and I really try to change that by, you know, trying to create a community around me of musicians and other composers. And yeah, some of them work out great. Some of them come from other directions. Some of them would never work in my environment. You know, but I love this thing. You know, and I love that Hollywood is the last place on earth. It really is, that on a daily, sometimes hourly basis commissions new music that people can actually, you know. I mean, look, I watch my kids, you know, trying to put the hours into their violin practice and all that stuff, with some with more enthusiasm than the other. But you know, let's say you really want to do that. I mean, you should be able to earn a living. You should feel great about wanting to join an orchestra. You know, and then you've got all those problems. You know, the economy goes down. All right, okay, we're going to cut the orchestras. You know, technology arrives. You know, oh, maybe we can replace the orchestra. But at the end of the day, you know, this place has a pretty good track record. Look at this space.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you could make a lot more money turning this into offices. But you know, it has a pretty good track record in keeping music alive and making us artists feel safe. I mean, all these studio heads, all these executives, you know that we have to always be on the abyss of failure, cataclysmic, catastrophes, because we're trying to do something new.
Right.
And sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
But I know of no filmmaker who ever set out to make a bad movie, and I know of no filmmaker that I know that I've worked with who's doing it for the money. They're doing it because they have to. And I know of no musician who's just doing it for the money. It's too hard. You know, the money isn't, money isn't inspiring. You know, having Zach sit there and tell you a story, that's inspiring. You know, having him show you a drawing, talking to a DP about what the colors are going to be. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, perfect way to end. Thank you.